In the tapestry of life, where every thread holds a story, America in black and white emerges as a haven for the voices echoing through the heart of our communities. In this podcast, we wade through the rivers of our collective experiences, celebrating the vibrant hues of change brought forth by the whispers of hope and the roars of action. It's more than just a conversation. It's a journey into the heart of our society, illuminated by the light of those daring to dream and do. Join us, and let your voice be the melody that guides us toward a dawn where every color finds its place in the masterpiece of our shared destiny. Together, let's paint a future brimming with the positives that dwell in our minds and the actions that shape.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of America in Black and White, where we discuss the issues of what's taking place in the marginalized and underserved communities and how we can best serve and help them. Tonight, we have Mr. Ivan Thompson as our guest, and Mr. Thompson has got a lot of good things to talk about. That includes leadership as well as things that are happening in the community. Ivan is a retired Air Force lieutenant colonel who graduated from the United States Air Force Academy in 1986 with military distinction and as the outstanding cadet in organizational behavior. He earned his master's in management from Regent University in Virginia Beach, Virginia in 1995. He has over 25 years of experience consulting, conducting senior leadership off-sites, and strategic planning sessions. He served as deputy director of the Defense Business Practice Implementation Board. As the deputy, he helped facilitate task groups from the Secretary of Defense, comprised of senior DoD civilians and retired and active Fortune 500 CEOs. Ivan is a seasoned author with over 35 published titles. His books are available on Amazon.com, and many are available as audiobooks on audible.com. Ivan's three exceptional books about diversity in the Air Force books have garnered rave reviews, impacted Air Force policy, and directly led to the honorary promotion of original Tuskegee Airman Charles E. McGee to Brigadier General. Ivan is also a singer, songwriter, and a seasoned actor with a musical theater, television, improv, industrial, independent film, commercial, print, voiceover, and teleprompter credits. He has performed the national anthem for the NFL, NBA, MLB, NHL, WNBA, NASCAR, and NCAA. He was recently cast in the off-Broadway production Henry Box Brown the Musical. Other musical theater credits include Off-Broadway, Baby, The Color Purple, Non-Union National Tour, Regional, Next to Normal, Lewisburg, West Virginia, Kinky Boots, Long Island, New York, West Side Story, Los Angeles, Ragtime, Phoenix, The Wiz, Mesa, Arizona, Dreamgirls, Phoenix. Ivan has 5 adult children, 1 granddaughter, and resides in New York City. Ivan's original music can be found on iTunes, Spotify, Apple Music, and all other major music retailers. His Instagram is IvanLive360. Ladies and gentlemen, I introduce you all to Mr. Ivan Thompson.
Thank you, Charles, for having me and for that introduction. Thank you very much.
Oh, not a problem. Thank you for being here. Can you? Is there anything you'd like to add to your bio?
That felt like my whole life story. No, I don't think there's anything I'd like to add. I guess if you look at military as one career and then entertainment as a second career, I would say I'm about mid-career in my second career as an author, public speaker, singer, creative type, if you will.
Wow. Well, I mean, all of that is great, and also it's amazing that you retiring as a lieutenant colonel and you're still functioning, doing these multifaceted things. That speaks volumes.
Oh, thank you, God. To God be the glory.
Well, let's jump right into the show here, and tell us. Can you share a pivotal moment in your military career that shaped your leadership philosophy?
Hmm, good question. I think there's probably you can learn from positive role models and you can learn from negative role models. And I think as a young officer, I think I learned more from the bad examples. There were some folks. Everybody's not a cheerleader. Everyone's not going to celebrate your success. Everyone's not going to celebrate your talent. And what I found out was there were people who were. I'm not in direct competition with them for promotion, but jealousy. Um, at first I couldn't tell, and often as an African American, you can't tell if it's jealousy or if it's racism. All you know is that somebody is actively trying to thwart, hinder, come against you. And you don't, and so you, as a black man, you have to wonder: was it, is it because they're racist? Is it because and I sometimes you can't tell. But as a young officer, I found that it didn't. I needed to mix in my faith with my hard work, because some people just the hard work produced results, but it also produced the jealousy and a coming and some forces coming against me that I couldn't deal with on my own. Meaning, some of my bosses tried to come after me and my ratings, downgrade my ratings, change my assignments, downgrade my awards. And my faith really helped me through that. So I think early on, I learned what kind of leader not to be, so that when I got in that position, the people that work for me, I wouldn't be jealous of what they were trying to do. I would try to promote what they were trying to do. Because in the end, if you do good and you work for me, I'm going to look good. I couldn't
Right,
understand why other bosses didn't understand that. Because if I wanted to, I could kind of take credit for everything you do because you work for me.
right.
you know, Instead of trying to hold you down because you're gonna outshine me. So I think early on in my career, I learned that your job as a leader is to find out what people want. People go to work, for paychecks, so on and so forth, but they also have ambitions and things that they want to accomplish. And if you can make that happen for people, people will do anything for you. So I think it shaped me as a young leader to try to figure out what's going on in their family life, what's going on in their career, where do they want to end up in their career, how can I help them with their rewards, how can I help them get to that next job, that next promotion, instead of what I experienced. Part of it, I was kind of a weird, I sang, and so as a junior officer, as a lieutenant, my singing put me in front of generals, in front of high ranking people, and so people got jealous of that, and the things I did on the outside, even though I was very good at my job as well. And so as a boss, I really tried to make sure that that wasn't me, that if I found a shining star, I tried to put that person out in front and enable them as best as I could. So I think for me, unfortunately, most of the lessons I learned were from some of the people what not to do when I was a boss.
It's amazing that as you speak of that, and with you being an officer in the military, you and I discussed this off camera, of course, but me being enlisted in the Navy, you know, I would say that the experiences and the things that you're speaking of, I think that, from my perspective, I think it's definitely more so was from a racist perspective, because those other folk felt so entitled, and they were entitled because any situation or anything that was given that would give them the opportunity to be of prominence or to be promoted or whatever have you, they got those opportunities. So to see somebody like yourself now, I know it's got to be different as an officer, as an enlisted person, but it's interesting to know that you face some of those things, and it just I mean, you were still able to overcome them, but like in just that thinking of that thought process of that whole thing, what was your initial thoughts when those things were happening?
Wow. Um, I remember when I first started doing singing stuff, it wasn't even something that I mean, just God is good. Very high level folks were saying, "Hey, we want you." I had a black colonel that said, "You're gonna sing at every promotion, every retirement, every." He caught on, and so I remember the little captain in my office. He made a little comment, about me going off singing all the time, almost implying that I wasn't getting my work done. And I was a workaholic. I worked weekends, I worked lunches. There was no way I wasn't getting my work done. But he made the comment, and initially, I felt threatened by it. I got trapped in my own racial stereotypes, meaning I thought of myself. Uh, Younger people may not know what a minstrel is, you know, but
Right.
that I'm this singing black man, and the only reason I'm getting any praise is because I can sing, not because I'm a competent military officer. That used to weigh heavy on me, and then later I started getting the accolades for my work, and then I realized, no, this guy's just jealous, and it's not something I have to worry about. But initially I didn't know how to handle it because I'd never really seen that before. I didn't expect that. I expected that if we all work hard, we'll all respect each other and we'll all encourage each other, and that wasn't the case. Like I said, you can't tell if it's racism. In one case I knew it was, in a couple cases I knew it was. In one case I just thought he was just jealous, because all this shine was coming to me, and then eventually shine came to me because of my work. And
Mhm.
I was briefing the two-star on my work as well as singing at all the functions on base and stuff like that. But initially, I kind of the took it on myself like I was doing something wrong. That somehow I was internalizing these negative feelings instead of pushing them off, because I had this whole thing in my head. I don't want to be known for singing. I want to be known for being a good officer and doing my job. And eventually I realized, no, I'm actually good at both. I could do the singing on the side and I could still do
Mhm.
my job, and ended up
Mhm.
doing a better job at my job at a lower rank that he was doing. So much so that later they came and asked to put a higher ranking person in my job and said, "Hey, we got to get this guy promoted. We want to take you out of your job and put you in his job so he can take over what you're doing because you built it up so much so he can get promoted." And so that
Mhm.
was that was crazy. But yeah, so I mean, as a young officer, you don't know. I was second lieutenant. I'm dealing with a captain. A six,
Mhm.
7 year captain. I'm a brand new second lieutenant. '01. I don't know what's going on. I don't know all the politics and stuff. I just know that you shouldn't be worried about what I'm doing over here as long as I'm getting my work done. Like I said, I was a workaholic. I worked weekends, I worked lunches. I was a single parent, but I had a lot of help with my daughter. So I was determined I was going to be company grade officer of the quarter. I had all these right out of the academy. I was just a hard charger thinking, I wanted to win all the awards and do all sort of stuff. And that rubs some people the wrong way, that kind of like chill. And I just wasn't, I didn't come there to chill. I came there to do well and to excel. And everybody's not going to applaud that, especially when the results start coming in and you start getting shine. The colonel's asking for you, the general's asking for you.
Mhm.
Yeah, everybody's not going to like that. Black, white, whatever. Everybody's not going to like it.
So, so at this moment, especially in that situation, for the young officers or the newly enlisted personnel, what advice would you have for them when they experience situations like that?
Go find a mentor. Fortunately for me, I was told, go find a chief, go find a black colonel. And we had a mentoring organization in the Air Force that is now called Air Force Cadet Officer Mentor Association, whatever. But it was a bunch of black colonels, and so I could go to this black colonel and feel safe about asking him, "Hey, this is what I'm experiencing. Or here's my records. Am I headed on the right path?" And what I've seen, and I'm trying to write a book on that right now, and I've been gathering data. What I've seen is that our young people today, I'm 60, so th- they're not being told what I was told. Go find a black mentor. So today there's this thing out there, even perpetrated by other black people, that racism doesn't exist anymore, and that
Oh
you don't
Lord.
need a black mentor. Because there's a lot of things, whether it's corporate or it's military. There's a system. Whatever organization you're, there's a system, and it works. And there's things that you don't know as a new person about the system. So you got to go find you a mentor. It didn't necessarily have to be a black mentor, but somebody that you can trust. I think black mentors can help in the area of what I was talking about before. Is this jealousy? Is it racism? Is it, because that black senior leader will have gone through some things and be able to maybe tell you, like I had a black leader told me for sure that one of the guys I was dealing with, oh yeah, I've dealt with him at a previous base. It is racism. You need to watch your back.
Mhm.
And then even maybe be able to, the person at a higher rank can intervene in a different way than you can when you're going uphill addressing a senior person, and you've been in the military, you're not, when there's a rank difference, it's so hard to address somebody of a higher rank if you think something shady is going on. But if you have a mentor, they can sit down with you and say, here's how I approach it, or they can pick up the phone and make a phone call. So I would say to any young person, whether it's corporate or military, find that preferably African American, because and some people forget that they're African American, so you got to be careful about who you pick. Some people, I don't know how else to say it. I don't know how else to say it, but there are some people that feel like, we it's just a true meritocracy, and we, there, and that's not the case in every situation. So you maybe want to find somebody who, not saying that, the racism is around every corner, because it's not. Some of the most helpful supervisors I have, some of the best bosses I've ever had, even at that base where people were trying to do me in, the white guy gave me favor with the white 2-star, and he undid everything that people were trying to do to me. So it's not necessarily a race thing, but I think you need to be able to, if you think that's what you're experiencing, talk to someone about it, someone that you can feel safe about, someone who has a broader perspective of the organization that can look at your records, look at your performance objectively. I just had this happen with a cadet at the Air Force Academy who got into some trouble, and was being treated unfairly. And he wasn't even going to tell me about it. I talked to this boy all the time and asked him, how's it going? How's it going? And he just assumed there was nothing he could do about it. He had got in some trouble. He's just going to accept this bad punishment. And then once he finally spilled it, I was able to make some phone calls and engage at a much higher level. And fortunately, it was all squashed. But he wasn't even going to tell me about it. I just had the same thing happen about a year and a half ago with some pilots. I met with them before they went to pilot training and said, hey, I know a whole bunch of pilots. If you get in trouble, let somebody know. And they didn't tell me until they got deep in trouble. One of them had already washed out. The other one, he didn't even tell his dad. His dad was in the Air Force. We tried to rally all these high-level colonels and lieutenant colonels and pilots to try to help him, but it was too late. So this piece of our culture is fading away. This notion that I need to go find this black mentor, especially like in the Air Force where most of the leadership is white. There's a comfort level there that needs to be, because I know I would approach young black officers and they look at me like I have 3 horns in my head. Like, I don't need a black mentor. And I'm going, if I could just get them to let me see your records. And they let me see their records. I go, ooh, you think you're doing good. You think what it says in this piece of paper in your records is good, but it's not. And let me tell you why. And I'm not saying that in every case it was because they were black that their records, but what I told my white leadership was that on the whole, for the organization I mentored in LA, for example, on the base, I said our black officers have a lower understanding of the system and what needs to be in their records to make them competitive for promotion. Why is that? I can't blame it all on white people, but I'm just saying this is what it is. So there's a need here, and I'm going to fill it for the ones that'll let me fill it. Because some people, like I said, they didn't feel like they needed a black mentor. I just trust my boss. And in every case, you can't do that, And then sometimes you do need that, for that whatever percentage it is, for that undercover racist, biased, whatever you want to call it, boss that you think is doing you well and is really not. That's when you need that mentor to be able to say, no, you're not getting the straight scoop here. And I don't know how we do that, when we have so many people now that are thinking, racism is dead. I won't name any politicians who've said that, get in trouble, but it's just not true. It's just not true. Like I said, it's not everybody, but there's enough bias in the system, or what we call unconscious bias, where people are looking at you and they don't even know themselves that they're biased.
Mhm.
You couldn't tell them that they were biased. But if you looked at their actions or maybe how they rated a group of people, there's just enough unconscious bias for them to rate you lower than they should have based on your accomplishments. And the only one that can really help you with that is somebody who has a more experience and longevity in the system to say, hey, man, based on what you're telling me, you should really be ranked here, not here. If we're doing a rack and stack 1 through 10, you should really be like number three instead of number seven. And in the military, if we rack and stack for promotions, for jobs, because if I give you this job and him this job, certain jobs are going to put you on a faster track for promotion. And
Exactly.
promotion equals money, and we only got 20-25 years to do this thing. So if you keep getting faster and faster promotions or better jobs, larger people, the numbers you're supervising, stuff like that, you're going to get promoted at a higher rate. You're going to finish higher, E7, E9, whatever, O6. And then that sticks with you for the rest of your life. My retirement paycheck is based on where I finished. And to
Hmm.
try to get people to understand that, I told this black 4 star, I said, you know what? I said, I was the most unmentorable person. And part of it dealt with my upbringing. My father wasn't that role model. And
Hmm.
unfortunately, in my family, it was painted that the black man wasn't a good person to look to because of different things. So I had a
Yeah.
distrust, and I looked down. I didn't realize it until later in life. I didn't realize I looked at my black leaders as less than.
Oh, wow.
I didn't realize it until after I retired. I went to that 4 star and retired. I apologized to him. I said, I could have listened to you more, but I took on some of this cultural stereotype that somehow the white officer, the white pastor, the whatever was better than. And I didn't
Hmm.
realize it until I was well down the road, 40s, out the door. I'm going, why do I look at them? And then, wow, this goes all the way back to childhood issues and my perception of black men. And then I'm thinking that's sometimes what I was receiving when I went to go be a mentor. They're looking at me like, well, you're not a full colonel, you're not a general, you don't have anything to offer me. I can trust my white officer, supervisor more than I can trust you. And I didn't
Hmm.
realize that I was doing some of the same things. I had some of the same perceptions, and that's pretty deep, but we do have these things we have to unpack. Like, why would I see a black officer and a white officer differently at the same rank? This officer was a 4 star, black 4 star. I had known him in 3 different bases, watched him
Hmm.
go from major '04 to 4 star, vice chief of staff of the Air Force, before I realized, wow, I've been looking at him differently, and I could have benefited from his advice a long time ago. But then that made me a better mentor. So if somebody was rejecting me, I didn't take it personally.
Hmm.
I just try to stick with it and get it to them another way, or get them somebody else to talk to them. Like in LA, if they wouldn't listen to me, we had a black 1 star. I put him on the calendar. I remember the
Hmm.
1 star black officer told me, Ivan, you could have told him this. I said, sir, I know, but he wouldn't listen to me.
Hmm.
I didn't have the credibility on my shoulder for this person to look at me, but he would listen to you even though we would have told him the same thing. So I try to understand, okay, you might not be able to receive it from me, but I care about you so much. I want to make sure you get this information, because at the end of the day, I know I'm right. I
Hmm.
know that you're not going to get promoted with the way you're going on what they're telling you in your office, even though that you're supposed to be able to trust them. They're not telling you the right thing. And I've written books about it. I've helped people. Some people say thanks, some people they don't. That's not why I'm doing it.
Hmm.
I just want people to succeed, and because, like I said, there's a lot of things I wish I had known, and I was helped by some people along the way. um, Black colonels that told me things, and then, like I said, it wasn't just black, but when I thought it was something like that, I needed to be able to talk to another black person who would understand that. you
Hmm.
know and I don't know how you can get around that sometimes, if that's what you think you're dealing with.
You know, I won't say the details, but um, actually, I was stationed in uh, a place on the Sun Belt, and when I say Sun Belt, that is, that's the coast, the Gulf Coast area. That's like Louisiana, Mississippi,
Mississippi.
Alabama, Florida, and so forth. Well, I was stationed there. Of course, my job was a dispersing clerk. So I did payroll. So pretty much finances connected to personnel, so pretty much it goes hand in hand, especially when there's some disciplinary actions and things of that nature where people are going to lose money or they're going to lose rank and things of that nature. Well, there's a bunch of young guys, and we didn't have Just so you say, because what you said is key. We didn't have anybody that looked like us that was at that tier. So that was what it was. And so remember, I said we were on the Sun Belt. We're in the Sun Belt. So we were on deployment. And while we were on deployment, I noticed, some things that was happening in a particular company, right? And so all these young boys, they looked to me for leadership, right? And so all of the issues that they were bringing to me, because I was seeing it, and I actually asked um, my dispersing officer, and I kept asking him. I said, "Does this look strange to you?" They were, and now during the time I'm talking, because I've been out the military now for over 30 years.
Okay.
So just think about we're talking about young boys that are E1s, E2s, maybe E3s. And they're getting all these disciplinary actions, they're busting them in rank, you know. And I mean, it was like just happening continuously and continuously and continuously. So I'm like, something is just not right about that. And I'm asking, my dispo, and he's just like giving me this diplomatic answer. And so with this diplomatic answer, I'm like, that's just ain't good enough. Because you see what I see right here, and we know that something's wrong with this, right? Well, there was particular E8 that was over this company that had this problem. Okay. And it was like target practice. That's how serious this was. So I said, I'm gonna do some things, but I'm gonna make this change. Okay. So I created, some surveys and so forth, and had all these people within the whole entire command. That is everybody that looked like me to meet me at my room. And so while we were talking, I gave them this survey and I told them, I said, make sure this goes to nowhere but back to me. I need you to fill it out and bring it back to me. It was surprising, but it wasn't surprising. So I requested to see the CO. So as I requested to see the CO, going up through the chain, they're asking me why I need to see the CO. I
Well,
said,
you need to see him, right?
that's personal. That's not for you. I got to the CO and he knew exactly what was happening because we had a talk. And again, I want to talk about that discussion, but we had a discussion. That discussion turned into a negotiation. Can you believe this? It turned into a negotiation. So,
What was he offering?
well, he told me, he says, I can't give you the command, but I can make some changes. What is it that you want? I told him that I wanted that particular individual
Moved
out the
out.
command.
Yeah.
He needed to be out the command. And so he says, I'll get back to you. So what he did was he moved him from over this company to operations. So I had to go see him again. I'm like, you just made him more powerful. Because if you may put him in operations, he still controls each and every move of these young men where he could still do the same thing. Because if he's not happy and he don't like it, just anything, if your uniform was wrong or whatever have you, he could say whatever you want to say about that. I said,
Yeah.
he's got to go. I said, if he's not gone, then I'm gonna send these. I'm gonna send these to CNN, and I want to know how you think about that.
Mm.
He was gone.
Well, good, good. I mean that is pretty powerful because I mean we have I don't know if in the Navy they had like the EO office, or anything like that, back then. Um, I don't know how else you could have addressed it.
There was
We
no other
just
way.
we after George Floyd, a lot of companies did the whole you know and looking within, and and looking for disparities and stuff. And the Air Force did too. And what they found was the same kind of disparities you're talking about with enlisted African Americans having harsher punishments, lower promotions, all these things. And what I write about is that whatever's in society outside the gate is going to be inside the gate. And the same
Yep.
problems we have outside the gate, we need to realize those problems are inside the gate. And we in the book, one of my books I write, it's called uh, I forget the book, the Air Force's Black Pilot State of the Union. The first book I wrote was called The Air Force's Black Ceiling. The third book in the series is called The Air Force's Black Pilot State of the Union. But one of the things I address is this notion of this report. I addressed that report that came out of the Air Force. It showed that, the same kind of things we've been seeing, officers getting promoted at a lower rate, higher rates of discipline, higher rates of adverse action against minorities. And this whole concept of unconscious bias, even though some of these people who are administering these punishments might not think that they're biased, or they might not be consciously going, I'm out to get people of a certain race or gender. When you look at the aggregate of it, you go, this is happening Air Force wide, and we need to do something about it. And we need to address it. Whether it's, sensitivity training, which everybody hates that kind of word, or whatever, we need to acknowledge that it's happening. And in my book, I wrote, Black people don't need to know. Black people don't need a study to tell them that it's happening, because they're experiencing it. They already know it's happening. The people in white leadership need to know it's happening, and try to figure out how we're going to get our arms around this. George Floyd heightened it, and then, as we all knew, eventually the noise and the commotion and the uproar over George Floyd's death was going to, die down. And we get to where we are now, where, we're talking about we need to get rid of all, DE and I, and I won't even get into the election and all the other stuff and that's going to happen, but yeah, it's still there because it's still in society, and someone like you doing what you did, that was amazing. I had somebody come to me, one of my senior NCOs, E7, came to me and said, hey, the Black enlisted people are being mistreated in our unit. And they're, and so I looked into it. Now, only problem he made was then he tried to tell me how to fix it, and that wasn't his place. We kind of bumped heads a little bit. So let me look into it, because I'm, as a Black officer, as a Black leader, or yourself, whatever level of leadership you are, you're the leader for all of those people,
Right.
Black, white, Asian, brown, and you got to make sure everybody's treated fairly. But I have an additional responsibility, and everybody doesn't think this way, to look at those people that look like me. Somebody reported, hey, something's going on that we think is shady, like your commander. I looked into it and I did find some stuff, and I went, oh, I do see something here. And so we're trying to be fair to everybody. In those instances where I saw something was going on and it looked like it was something racial, then I intervened directly. And like you said, I moved some people. Like one guy, just like, he didn't want to change his position on this guy's rating. And I was like, well, I can override your rating, but I can also make sure that you're not a supervisor of my unit anymore. And so I reorganized the flight, and you'll never be a supervisor for me again if you don't know how to, and another guy had this stupid thing, in the Air Force, we have airmen below the zone. So that's like a 1 or 2 striper who super excels, but you got to rate them like firewall. You're the best thing since sliced bread, so you can get early promotion. And he had a supervisor who's like, no airman is perfect, perfect 5s. I'm going, I know that. If you wanted to go by the book, nobody is, but you're rating people on their potential, because there are people that get promoted below the zone. There's people that get step promotions, and they all have firewalls. So it's being done. And we just got to figure out if this person's worth the benefit of the doubt. They have the potential for that. And this guy didn't see that he should do that. So I overrode his ratings. I said, okay, I'm not negotiating with you. I'm boss. And then like I said, but I'm also not, like, it works both ways, meaning I'm looking out for everybody. Who are the sharpest people? And then is there anything going on that's specifically harmful to this group of people? And then I've had it work the opposite way, where this one brother, he felt like I should cut him a break because he was Black, meaning like he left work early. He would kind of like clock out. He was going to baseball games, on duty, he would I would put notes on my door. I had 80 people working for me. I would put a note. If I'm somewhere in the unit, I'll put a note where I'm at when I'm coming back. He would just disappear. And I was like, when you leave, you need to let me know where you're going. And so the first sergeant comes to me, he goes, "Sir, I don't know how to tell you this. I'm gonna say the guy's name. But Sergeant X says you're not black." I knew
Mhm.
exactly what he meant because he expected me to let it slide. And I did. I tried it. He was my administrative person. So he did all of my enlisted ratings, all of my paperwork. And so one of these Fridays, I was stationed in Tucson, and they have spring training there. He was a baseball nut. He would go off
Mhm.
to baseball games,
Yes,
early and
yes.
just
That's the
sneak out.
grapefruit league.
So I took all his ratings. I went, it's just administrative stuff. I can finish all this stuff. I turned it all into the commander secretary, and that Monday they all came back. Because I don't know his job, what to look for. And my boss turns to me at the table. He goes, rah, 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 choose on me. Don't ever sit this kind of crap up again. And because I'm trying to cover for him. And I went, okay, I'm not doing that no more. He needs to do his job. Because I asked him when he took the job, he was in a work center of like 12. I said, Sergeant X, we got 80 people in this work center. I know you want to come over here so you can have the higher work center on your report so it can make you more competitive for promotion. But are you ready for that? Oh yeah, I'm ready for it. But then, like I said, disappearing. And then he was probably like about 40 pounds overweight, but he was the weight monitor.
Oh shit.
And we had those big green uniforms, and he wasn't getting caught because he was the weight monitor. All the stuff was kind of, I was put in this position where I was supposed to let it slide because we both black. And
Mm.
so, and I didn't. So he told the first sergeant I wasn't black, and he was worried that I was going to rate him poorly. And you damn right I'm going to rate you poorly because you're doing your job. And when I
Right.
confronted him on it, I said, "Hey man, you've been dipping out, blah, blah, blah." I'm talking to him. I'm standing. You already know I'm going with this. I'm standing, talking
Mhm.
to you, and you're sitting. He just kind of like barely looked up. He didn't stand. And I'm going, oh, so I didn't say anything in the moment, but later in a counseling session or another session, I calmed myself down. I said, "Hey, the other day I was talking to you about this. You didn't stand." He goes, "I was afraid of what I might say."
Mhm. Oh
You're really
wow.
pushing the limits of, this. I'm supposed to, make special concessions to you just because you're black, and I've,
Mhm.
I've already kind of given you about as much as I can do because now my boss is yelling at me. So I
Mhm.
don't care if you're black. I don't care if you got the same last name as me. Like I had a
Mhm.
cousin in my unit got busted for underage drinking. I had to like, how am I going to deal with this? Because the commander don't even know he's my cousin. I was like, So I just called every underage person in. I kind of fussed them all out and said, no underage drinking. But really, I'm only talking to one person,
Right.
to my cousin, because it's a difficult thing, whereas the sad thing about the Air Force is it's not the same for white officers. Meaning, if a white officer helps another white officer, it's not looked at any kind of way. But if I, as a black officer, help another black enlisted or black officer, something's supposed to be wrong with that. And there's some black officers that get caught in that trap. They don't want to seem like they're doing something special for other black people because of
That's
the
the
impression,
entitlement. That's the entitlement.
whereas the good old boy system or the I knew your father, that's alive and well in the Air Force, and has always been. In my book, in that same book, I write that most of our black generals, their parents were in the military.
Mhm.
Like the first uh, the commander of the Tuskegee Airmen, his father was the first black Army general, and then so
Mhm.
General Davis becomes the first black Air Force general.
Mhm.
So there is some when people get in, they coattails.
Mhm.
But somehow when the coattails are African American, we want to look at that a little bit different. When we're helping each other up, that's looked at as a bad thing. You know,
Mhm.
whereas white officers do it all the time. In my book, one of my earlier books, in this book actually, I wrote about how Douglas MacArthur, five-star general, his father was a general. His mother wrote the president, said, "Hey, let him keep his wartime rank,"
Oh
and
wow.
the president let him keep his rank. So that fast tracked him to be able to be in World War II, five-star, Douglas MacArthur. So, Eisenhower got in trouble as a major, as a 04. He called up his buddy, Pershing, He knew a General Pershing. General Pershing makes phone calls. Ike gets bailed out. Ike becomes a 5-star and president. That kind of stuff has gone on throughout our military history. But when Black people do it, it's frowned on. And so, unfortunately, some of our Black officers don't have the courage. I don't say the courage. It's a tough place to be in, because usually they're the only one. We've only had 11 Black 4-stars in the Air Force out of over 250 4-stars. Just for
Mhm.
perspective, you talk about, like this book. I remember Air Force's Black Ceiling had a white lady come up to me at a place where I was selling them, and she was like, "Oh, so your book is kind of obsolete now." I was like, "What?" Because we had a Black Air Force chief of staff, kind of like, "Oh, problem solved. Racism is over." I'm like, she don't get it. She don't get it. You know?
No, believe me, them people will never get that. They will
Hopefully, if
never
you read
get
the
it.
books, you'll understand. But it was funny. She's like, your book's kind of obsolete by now, right? I'm like, what?
Oh, wow. That's crazy. So, how do you believe your military experience has influenced your approach to leadership in civilian life?
Good question. So one of the things I experienced on the tour, I was on a tour as an understudy and a swing. A swing is like a substitute teacher, meaning an understudy. I was the understudy for Mister in the color purple. So if the guy from Mister can't go on, I go on in his place. So a swing is along the same concept, meaning I had to learn 5 different people's parts. So if any one of them went out, I could jump in like a
Okay.
substitute.
Mhm.
But you got like the primary cast, then you got the swings. And so on the tour I was on, they kind of treated us like crap. And so I kind of stepped in. I was like, look, I don't know how they treat people in this industry, but I learned how to take care of people where I came from. And this is not it. If you say we're
Okay.
all part of the same team,
Mhm.
then we should all be treated with dignity and respect. So, and what I found, and I've worked in other places, I almost named some nonprofits and stuff. What I found, oh yeah, nonprofits and academia, what I found out is somebody might be, let's say in the church setting, they might be a
Mhm.
great orator, they might know the Bible, but they have no training on how to treat people.
Exactly.
And so they don't know how to develop people. They don't know necessarily how to discipline people, praise them. We're taught praise in public, discipline in private. Nonprofits I work for, some people, I remember this guy in this one nonprofit organization in Arizona. Leadership at the highest level made a mistake. They
Mhm.
made a mistake that was going to cost the company money and affect ours at the lowest level. So this guy comes in and he's going to be briefing them. He wasn't in my organization. He was in another organization. He was in the retail side of this nonprofit. I was in another side of it. But I'm there that day and I'm in the meeting. He's talking to all the retail people, telling them that they're going to have to take a cut in their hours.
Mhm.
And somebody raises their hand and kind of like, well, why? And the guy told him, be lucky you have a job. And these people only making like $10 an hour. And some of these people in
Exactly.
his organization they were like the most profitable or successful part of this nonprofit organization. I'm going, you're talking to some of the people who've been the most loyal to this nonprofit. And you said, be lucky you had it. I wish I was like the VP. Like I was like to put on, like they said, the CEO in hiding or the undercover CEO. I said, I wish I was the
Mhm.
CEO, undercover CEO, because I would have handed that dude his papers right there on the spot. You need to
Yeah,
be lucky you have a job and you don't have a job anymore. Goodbye. You telling the most
exactly.
loyal group of people, but, because what it was, this nonprofit hired people, like they made a big deal of, we hired these people off the street. But then in the back of their mind, they remembered that. Don't forget, we hired you off the street. I had that happen to me
Ooh.
once. I was the deputy director of Defense Business Board, and I remember being told that when I challenged something. Well, we hired you, like, you know, and you were only a major. And I was like, what?
Wow.
What? Is that what you really think of me? And so, in terms of how people should be treated, mentoring, I realized my military training, because, at every level as an officer, you get professional military education. As a captain, you get squadron officer school. As a major, you get air command and staff college. As a colonel, lieutenant colonel, you get air war college, and you get all these trainings on leadership and supervisory stuff and scenarios, and then you have all the real life experience of being a leader and supervising people, disciplining people, rewarding people, promoting people. And what I've seen in the nonprofit and even in entertainment sector is a lot of people don't have that kind of expertise, and a lot of these managers, they just talk to people in the old kind of way, and they have no training, for how to motivate or how to develop, or even being told, okay, like this is a resource. We've invested money in training and hiring this person. We want to nurture them and develop them, um, with something beyond just their paycheck.
Right.
Some people you can retain if you're just nice to them. Imagine that. Or you care about them, and they know they have a little kid who has a softball game next week that's very important to them, and let's try to figure it out so you can be off on that day. Caring about people, that there's no place in academia. Like a person in an academic situation, they might be a great teacher and they get promoted to principal or some, managerial thing, but all they know is classroom instruction. They don't know how to supervise people. I remember I was working in a school where they just decided we're not going to give, what was it? They didn't allow you to take a holiday in conjunction with a 3-day weekend, even though it was in their handbook that you could. And because the leadership was too lazy to figure out a schedule that would allow people to take it off, either by seniority, you've been here the longest, you get to take it off. They just said, nobody can. I'll come along. 15 years HR experience, I put in for that day. I'm a PE teacher at that time doing 12 classes a day. I'm getting wore out, and I put in for it, and they said, you can't take it. I went to the handbook because I'm an HR guy, It said in the
Right.
handbook said that I can. Well, we strongly discourage that. And I went, why? And then I pressed on with it and did it anyway. They got upset, but they were too lazy to figure out. Even when there was another thing where teachers had a planning period, and they said it's too much work to try to connect the teacher's planning period to their lunch or whatever so they can get an entire hour off. It was all disconnected. So I sat down because I've done shift schedules in the military. I've done shifts, seen shift schedules. So let me take a stab at it. And I put together a shift schedule that married everybody's planning period near their lunch or whatever. All the teachers are all excited. Well, then the principal gets upset because she was too lazy to put in that kind of time. We approved
She didn't
it. She
want to
got
work.
pissed off.
She didn't want to work.
She got pissed off that I would take that kind of effort, because she had said it couldn't be done. And I'm going, they probably just don't know. But I mean, the whole idea of the manager as a servant, the leader as a servant, I already, know that I make more money than you. We look at the pay scales, as an officer, first thing to list people, yeah, you're making all the big bucks, Well, then there's a responsibility with that, that I should be trying to, know something about you and your family. I should know if there's stuff going on that I can help you with, if you're going to school, if you need leave at a certain time, that kind of thing. I brought that into these, other organizations that I worked in after I retired, or even in the entertainment industry. And I expect those things, I expect to be treated the same way. And I will raise my hand and say something, like, hey, I don't know how it's being done here, but you can be nice. You can treat us all the same, and even HR principals. You're like, okay, I hear you, Mr. Entertainment person right over me, but everybody has a boss. I know that because I was in the military. Everybody has a boss. So you're saying this, I write a letter to your boss or to your boss's boss, and then I'm gonna get my issue resolved. And so I learned all that in the military, and I think it serves me well. Even in, like I said, I see it in ministry. I've seen academic where they might have this one little skill, but nobody ever taught them about leadership, being a servant leader. They might say they care about people, but they don't know how to deal with certain situations, because they haven't had the same training.
Mhm. Wow.
Not saying that
So,
every military leader is a good, an embodiment of all that, because we know that they're not.
yeah. Well, we know that not everybody's a good leader, and some people are pretty much, as you mentioned earlier, they're kind of like stuck in that situation. The entitled people, that's how they benefit. And they benefit because they have this great crew that makes them look totally, totally perfect, and they don't know the first thing about the whole entire operation. They just don't know shit. But because they have that name and they look like somebody that like them, and they look like somebody to say, well, I need you to do this, and you're just going to be put here. They're put there and they just benefit from that good labor. That's where I think in the military, especially, that, if we talk about merit, merit is not there. It's there on the book as in say what it's supposed to look like. But the majority of those people that are in those leadership positions are there because somebody put them there because they know somebody.
Well,
And they
I,
get
I
to
think
stand there all that time and screw up stuff and mess people around and everything else. And they just benefit from that.
I won't go that far with you, Charles. I will say that if you're, let's just say you're white, you're Caucasian, and you are super talented, and you are a good leader, it's going to be easier for you to rise up the ranks than somebody that's equally talented and qualified as you. I'm not saying I won't go so far as to say that everybody who's white who's got to a higher position was unqualified or less qualified. I know that's not the case. But I would say like this black general who was now the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. He said I always had to work the old adage, twice as hard to go half as far kind of thing. He always had to work harder, to overcome perceptions. Even our current uh, SecDef, Secretary of Defense, former black four-star, talked about how he would have white officers do his briefings, people that were his subordinates do his briefings so that it could get across, or how sometimes they come up and they're greeting him and he's with his like aide or whatever, and they go up and greet the aide like the aide is the boss because they assumed the white person was the leader. And the kind of things that we go through as leaders are different. But I won't say that, that we're always either more qualified or that they're always either less qualified. I would just say that if we're equally qualified, a lot of times it's going to be harder for that African American because of the unconscious and conscious bias. Somebody sees you, they're already making judgments, have perceptions about you. Some of the perceptions they have, they're not even aware of. And so, as a mentor, like for me, when I came in, I had that feeling, and I was like, well, as long as they looking at, they might as well see something good. I'm gonna be, I'm gonna be shining every time you see my uniform's gonna be together. I'm gonna be the most qualified, whatever. And then I found out my faith plays a big part in that too. In that, um, I found out. You talk about those pivotal moments. I found out my working hard was not enough. But when I added my faith to it, then God helped me. We call favor. Daniel, Joseph, Esther in the Bible, they found favor. God caused the highest man on the base to have, to like me and see my work when other little minions in between was trying to, you know, put a brother down. God caused the two-star to have favor with me. Everything I did, he loved it. And so that trumped everything. When people tried to cancel my assignments, when they tried to tell me I didn't deserve certain decorations, I wasn't going, to have this or that, or they took over all the shiny stuff I was working on, trying to put Cinderella in the corner and work on other stuff. Whatever I was working on, God caused that man to be concerned about that. And that's my testimony, and did I have some things that made it to my record that were harmful? Yes. Did they hurt my career? I would say no. In terms of all the things that I wanted to accomplish in my career, I pretty much accomplished. There's things I probably could have done to go further, but I didn't decide to. I always had one eye out, because I always wanted to do some of the things I'm doing now. So some of the decisions I made affected the rank I attained. Like I went on a 1-year musical tour, which for promotion to colonel doesn't fit at all. But for what I'm doing now, it set the stage for a lot of things I'm doing now. And I just didn't know at that time that I would be doing this full time. I never saw that, or I didn't think it was viable anymore because I tried it when I was young. I was on Bobby Jones Gospel. I did all the shows, auditioned for all those things or whatever. Hopefully I answered your question. I have a tendency to ramble. So wave at me if I'm rambling and not answering your questions.
Oh no, you're fine. What are some key leadership lessons you learned while serving in the military?
I think we've covered a lot of them. That the people that I'm responsible for, I'm supposed to serve them. Servant leadership. Jesus washed people's feet. So for me, I would get in and look at everybody's records when I first got in, And then I'll bring everybody in eventually, like what are your goals? Because we're all in the military, we're all in an assignment, but we're going to another assignment. We're at one rank and we want to be another rank. And so I try to figure out for each person, what is it that you want out of your career, your next job? And then try to figure out how can I help you to do that. Some people, they didn't have a next job thing. They just want to go to school. Okay, how can I put you in a job where you can go to school? Some people, so being a servant, um, excellence, hey, to try to teach what excellence means. Some people thought excellence and being promoted was a timestamp. I've been an E6 for 12, for 5 years. So it's my time to be E7. I'm like, no, because you're getting a check, and so everybody you come to work, you get a check. If you want to be the highest ratings, you got to do more than just your job. You got to be visible in the unit. You got to do the extra things because there are people doing extra things. And when I'm rating everybody, you're being rated against your peers. So teaching people what excellence meant, like in my unit, I told my E6s that E7 is somebody that leaps tall buildings in a single bound. They do. I tell them one time and they get it done. I don't have to come back and explain. And I tried to tell them what excellence meant and set the example myself, be a role model for that. But then when I saw excellence rewarded, but teach them how to goal set, teach them how to do the hard things. Like some people might be excellent, like an excellent technician. Let's say radio repair. I had an E7. He was good at testing. He was good at his skill, but he wasn't good at discipline. I'm like, man, as an E7, you're the superintendent. I need you to be able to handle some disciplinary stuff. Not that I can't handle it, but if you're the senior enlisted person in this unit, you need to be able to do both. You need to be able to praise, but you also need to be whack people on the head when they need it. And so teaching people how to discipline, how to document, how to care. I don't know how you teach caring. Some people just they don't get it. And those people, my job, I wasn't very confrontational. I felt God kept putting me in situations where I had to confront. I had a guy that was blowing. He was a Navy guy. They do things different in the Navy. He was a civilian, but he was a Navy guy. He was blowing in this girl's ear. And my first thought was something sexual. But he was blowing in her. He blew in her ear like, "Do you have a brain?" And so I had to take him in and write him a letter of reprimand. Say, you do it again, you're fired. So I'm responsible for the whole culture. So what I trick myself into doing, because I'm not very confrontational, when I'm doing this quote unquote bad thing by disciplining this person that blew in the ear, I'm making the work center better for everyone. Or like this one guy, he wanted to be a leader so bad. And I told him, hey, man, I don't really know if you're qualified to be a leader. Oh, I got it. So I got one thing I want you to do. We keep having this problem in this one area with classified documents. It's a training issue. Make sure people are doing the training and stuff like that. So one day I learned management by walking around, managed by surprise popping in. I popped in. Let me see the training records. Oh, because he told me he'd been on it. They were all blank. You wait right here. You wait right here. I went back and asked the E7. I said, hey, man, I'm going to need you to do 2 jobs for a while because I'm about to fire him. You have to do your job and his job, but I'll make it up to you in your rating. And I did. And I went back, fired that guy. And I looked at that as when I'm doing something hard, I'm serving our whole unit by getting somebody who's underperforming out of the way. That's the way I tricked myself, because in firing somebody, you think, oh, man, if I fire him or if I mark him down on his record, he may never get promoted. But if I'm serving the whole unit, if I'm moving the underperforming, especially if you lied, I mean, there's no excuse for that. You lied, and you've been lying. I asked you about it a couple times. You lying, and there's no room for that. So as a leader serving the organization, I'm promoting the good people, but I'm also pulling the supervisors, because nobody likes a bad boss or a boss that's underperforming, especially if you're one of the hard chargers and you're under a boss that's average, or like, this is what we need to do. We got a hard charger and junior NCO under a guy that's trying to retire or just kind of take it easy. Okay, how do I move these people up so these young lions can run? Or that's a bad egg, so people that need to be fired. I fired this other guy just because he was the guy that came to me and told me, hey, there's some stuff going on. The brothers